for episode... I don't know what episode this is, but for the Social Eclipse Podcast, another philosophy edition. Here with Z Buckner, of course, and we are excited for another episode.
We are.
So, we have lots of questions, but the one that we have discussed and decided on figuring out together today is the question of, would immortality ruin the meaning of life? It's an interesting question for me because when you look at humanity as a whole, I mean, it seems like our end goal is immortality. I don't know what else it would be, anyway.
What, you mean like scientifically? Like that's like the ultimate goal is to achieve immortality?
Well,
or
I mean,
like...
maybe it's not obvious, but I would assume so. What else would humanity be working towards except for immortal life? Everyone dodges death as much as possible. It would only make sense that we're aiming to achieve a point where we can no longer die.
Power. I think to some people that'd be more important even if it was a short life.
Right, but for humanity as a whole, because not...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just overall. Like, what's the most coveted thing? Like, no matter the boundary, like, what would people want more than anything? Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because, I mean, humans, we hate sadness, we hate death, we hate sickness. So I think that as technology progresses, you know, of course, a big goal for us is to colonize other planets, expand our civilization. But another big one would be to eliminate death from something we have to worry about. Because if we eliminated death, that would eliminate a whole lot of sorrow in the future for our civilization.
Yeah. I also think on the flip side of that, that's one of the reasons religion has been so appealing, no matter what the religion is. Like, there's always been religion. And on a large scale, you know, that's never been like a fringe interest. Yeah, in fact, more often than not, like, according to history, like, I would say there are probably more religious people than not. I don't know if I'm wrong, but...
I would assume so throughout history, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that might be the number one reason, you know? I think people like people always talk about, like, people like the idea of, like, a higher being, but I think even more than that, I think the idea of immortality is appealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would completely agree. Because, yeah, like losing a loved one is probably the pinnacle of I guess, sadness
Grief.
or heartbreak that a human being can experience.
Yeah,
so
true.
So if throughout time you have a religion telling you that you're going to be able to see them again, then, yeah, that would be a huge reason, I bet, for people wanting to be religious is for that reason.
Yeah.
So with this question, would it ruin the meaning of life? I guess first thing we gotta ask is the biggest philosophy question of all. What is the meaning of life?
Uh-oh. I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah, we don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole. But in order to answer this question, we do have to sort of answer that question. That's going to differ a lot depending on who you ask. But
yeah, true.
I think for most people, meaning of life is to have an enjoyable experience, grow as a person, perhaps multiply and have children, and then when death eventually does come to your door, kind of be okay with it. Because you can look back and say, like, hey, I've done all I came here to do.
I think you could just simplify it as happiness, and that's different for everybody. Like, you know, people get happiness out of different things, like even in demented ways. Like people who do demented things, it makes them happy in like a sadistic way. So people are slaves to their own emotions, and we obviously want to feel the best emotions. So maybe that's the meaning of life, you know, finding happiness through yourself and through other people, and that also extends to like giving it to others, which also makes you happy in return. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. So, would immortality take that away? Well, I don't think so, right?
Not necessarily,
if we're
no.
just going off of what we've said so far, if the purpose of living is to experience joy and happiness, like being immortal is probably only going to make that happiness grow.
Yeah. The only counter argument I can think of right away is I think it's not a perfect theology, but the idea that if your time is limited, you don't take it for granted as much. You cherish it more. And I know that's true for myself because there's been many times where, like, my siblings are all together and you kind of take it for granted. It's just like an everyday thing. But then one of them's like ready to go off for college. Like sometimes it's me, sometimes it's someone else or whatever. Those last couple weeks before like somebody leaves, like you're doing a lot of stuff. You're having lots of fun. You realize your time is short, and you're generally more. You cherish the moment more. And it's the same with vacations for families who don't see each other. You know that you're not going to be around each other very much, so you make the most of what you got. So I guess the argument against immortality is, if you've got forever, sometimes the present moment isn't as precious because you can procrastinate anything as long as you want. Whereas if your time is finite, that's not so appealing. You don't want to procrastinate.
Yeah, that's true. If you know that you have 10,000 years to eventually get something done, maybe there's a book that you've always wanted to read. You're like, well, I can read it now, or I could push it off for 10,000 years. And maybe that would play a factor in just becoming a lazy bum.
Yeah. And put it this way. If I told you had 10 days to live, that's not really much, so you'd probably just be depressed. But if I told you, hey, you have 2 days, you have 2 years to live, a decent amount of time, but it's not a lot. Like 2 years goes by fast. I'm like, you've got 2 years to live. You're going to die 2 years from today. You would probably like have a good 2 years, and you'd make sure of it, right? Like a really good 2 years, like the best 2 years of your life. And you'd do anything to make sure that's what happened, and you'd do everything you've been putting off and everything. And I'm telling you, I think our brains switch into like a whole different mode when you realize that time is short, even if that doesn't mean death necessarily.
Yeah, no, for sure, that's a good point. If someone's only given a year left and they're not so sick where they can't go out or anything, then I imagine that they're going to be spending all that time with family or doing good or, making sure that they get through their bucket list of things that they wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
So, on the opposite side, if you never did have an end date, then where's the motivation to do any of that?
Yeah, true.
And
true.
And maybe part of that is, I wonder if after a while of being immortal, everything in life becomes pointless,
meaningless.
Yeah, meaningless. Because even if you do achieve something great, then eventually, whether it's a year down the line or 1,000 years down the line, it really isn't going to matter, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. If we lived forever, I'm not talking about afterlife. I'm talking about like as it is now. Like if you lived forever, would you, what would you do at that time? Would your time be precious to you? Probably not at first. I think it would take some learning, and it's certainly no guarantee. But I tend to think that I'd kind of get in a zone where I'd be like, man, my life is meaningless because nothing changes. I know that because I feel that sometimes as it is. You know what I mean? Like, forget finite time or anything. Sometimes like the monotony of life just kind of gets to you, and you're like, man, I could be doing more. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's interesting to consider, but I'd like to think you get to a point where you're like, if I'm here forever, I might as well be doing something, right? You can't really live with boredom forever. That would just kind of drive anyone insane. So, in a way, I think it would kind of do the opposite. I think it would kind of motivate you.
Right. And depending on what happens to humanity in the future, like I know that the worst nightmare of someone who's immortal is to be completely alone. Right.
No, true.
What if you go 10,000 years down the line, humans have died out for one reason or another, and now you're either stuck on a big lifeless rock, or maybe you're even floating through space forever. Forever. That it sounds like there's nothing worse than that.
That does sound terrible. That's got to be like one of my biggest fears that will never happen, is like floating in space and never dying. Like that's gotta be like the worst thing that could ever happen to somebody. But
yeah, one of my
hey, unless you have a tangent off that, I thought of something that we could talk about. I was telling you before the podcast, I was thinking of like fictional characters, because Wyatt and I are both like movie literature fans. I thought of who I was thinking of was Arwen from Lord of the Rings. So she's like immortal because she's an elf, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she can give up that immortality to be with a mortal, and she chooses to do so. Is that in itself kind of the answer? You know what I mean? And is it accurate to real life? And would everybody choose that? Like, would you give up an immortal life just to live, I don't know, what, 80 years or whatever, to be with somebody you love? I would argue most of us would, rather than being alone.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's a great point. Maybe that single question could help us understand what is most important to us. Is it really to live on forever, or is it to make the most of what time we have?
Yeah.
And there are a few different ways to define immortality. You could look at the elves and be like, oh, well, they never age. But if they get stabbed in the heart, they're still going to die, right?
Right.
Or Buck and I were talking about Davy Jones before this from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's like, yeah, he's got a heart in a box and he hides it, or you put it in a jar. But ultimately, he can still die. So there's those types of immortality. And then there is true immortality, which is you will be here until the end of the universe and possibly beyond that.
Yeah. I think Davy Jones is an interesting case study. And yeah, these are fictional characters and everything, so that kind of like suspend your disbelief. But he's a character who literally like cuts his heart out because he's so miserable, and he has to live with that like forever. You know what I mean? Like, not only does he have to be immortal, but like he's miserable forever. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, guy. Man, like that's a really sucky way to live. Like if you knew you were going to be alone, I mean, nobody would want to be immortal. That's just terrible. But yeah,
such a good.
But
character.
with immortality, what?
Just such a good character. I love that character.
He is a really good character. Yeah, those movies were ahead of their time. But anyway, they I think it's like it's a scary thought to be like, well, immortality is scary, sure, but it's a lot of potential, right? I mean, are you really alone forever? If it's your circumstances, you're stuck in space, then yeah, of course. But like, for me, if I was immortal and I was here on Earth, that's also a possibility, like it's kind of my fault if I'm alone forever at that point. Yeah. Like, you have forever to learn from your mistakes. How can I be a better person? How can I be more happy? In a lot of ways, you're in control of that. In some ways, you're not. But yeah, with that comes possibilities. And I mean, can you imagine the chance of like, if we learn and we can become like rocket scientists in the space of like 10 years already, through schooling and all that, and even more so to master a craft, 20, 30 years or whatever it might be. Can you imagine the possibilities of like the human brain if we had hundreds, if not like thousands of years? Like, that's a cool idea to me. Like, it is kind of daunting to think about, like kind of scary, but It's also interesting. Like, what would our potential be if humans lived longer? Like way longer. Would we become more evil? Would we realize that we're selfish human beings?
Possibly.
Or would we truly reach our potential? I don't know. That's a cool idea.
Gandalf comes to mind. He has a super
true.
long lifespan, and he spends it like studying, helping others, like also becoming more powerful, but not for his own selfish desires, like to protect the good people who can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe that would
be
They
say with age comes wisdom. I don't know if I totally agree with that, to be honest with you, because some people, it's just not true.
Yeah.
But it's no guarantee that the older you get, the more you realize what life's all about and everything. And it certainly could be, but I don't know. Maybe everybody gets to a point, where it's like, man, I've lived here so long. If I'm doing all this crap that's like not good for me, eventually you realize it's not good for you, Some people, maybe it takes longer than a lifetime, but if you're immortal, maybe you start figuring that stuff out and you get wiser. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the personalities of people change to a point as they age.
Yeah.
I mean, we're certainly different than we were when we were young teenagers or graduating high school, and I'm sure our personalities will be different when we're 50 or 60. But
yeah,
I wonder how much it can actually change, even with an infinite amount of time. Because, even if I live for 10,000 years, my name's still going to be Wyatt. I'm still going to be a goofball. I'm still going to have a silly sense of humor. But I'm sure, yeah, hopefully I would be much wiser. I would be much more knowledgeable. I would find ways to help other people. That's the hope. Can only hope.
Yeah, you want to go really deep into philosophy. I think people are you are defined by like the physical, like chemical you. There's brain chemistry that, defines who you are, what you do. Obviously physicality, you look like what you look like because of genetics and what you eat and whatnot, but like we're also a product of our experiences. There's a lot of things that I believe, and there's a lot of ways I behave because of experiences of my past. And I would even argue probably more so. They talk about nurture versus nature, and I think both can be true, but I'm definitely more on the side of like your experiences make you who you are. And if that's true and you have hundreds of years, are you really the same person? Kind of, these experiences make up of who you are. Brain chemistry can change over hundreds of years, but you always have the same experiences, the same memory, unless you forget. And I guess after that's a whole nother topic. If I was immortal, would I forget what I was like 500 years ago? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, human brains are already not that great. So,
yeah.
Man, that's another whole can of worms. Sheesh. Like, do we have better memories if we're immortal? I think that would have a lot to do with what we'd be like. Would we be totally different? It's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, I suppose it would depend on the method as to which we became immortal. Because if I were sitting here and I just suddenly became immortal, I mean, humans have an amazing capacity to remember things. I know that there are autistic people out there who can read entire books and memorize them, right? But at the same time, there's a limited amount of neural links that we have in our brains. So at some point, maybe I'll start forgetting who I am and just remembering the past 300 years of experiences I've had. And then you look back and you're like, wait, where did I even come from? That would be very strange.
Yeah, that is very odd. Have you ever heard, this is a huge rabbit hole, but have you ever heard the ship of Theseus? I love this.
Oh yeah, that's where you take it apart and replace it with new boards, right?
Right. Yeah, for the listeners who don't know, ship of Theseus, I don't know where it originates, probably somewhere in like Greece. is the idea of like, hey, if I take a boat and I replace one board, is it the same boat? Most people will be like, yeah, it's the same boat. It's just got a different board. It's like, okay, well, if I replace half of the boat with different planks, is it the same boat? It's like, yeah, I don't know. If I replace the entire boat with, different, woods and, but it's the exact same, right? It's the exact same boat. It's just replaced. Every part is replaced. Is it the same boat? And that's when some people are like, I don't know. Like, is it? This is weird. I think about that every time I'm like shaving. For some reason, I'm shaving. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like, because it goes beyond just my hair. They say that your skin cells replenish every 5 years or something. Like your skin is totally different every 5 years. And
like your entire human body.
Yeah, and then there's like your DNA and your cells will replenish. I don't know what that one is, like 20 or 40 or whatever. But the point is, by the time you're 80 years old, like you're physically not the same person as you were when you were a toddler, like just like biologically. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's arguable depending on the ship. What you would say to the ship of Theseus, but that's weird to think about when you're thinking about immortality. Like at what point are you completely different? Like completely, and you're only a product of your memories and your experiences. Are you even recognizable? Could you pass by a different name? I don't know. Could you be Gandalf the White instead of Gandalf the Grey?
That is the question.
Yeah. Can a person really change that much? That's scary.
Yeah. I know that metaphor comes up a lot whenever people talk about whether humans have souls, right? Because if you're like,
right,
hey, if I clone myself, then is that really me? Think about the movie The Prestige, right?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
No, but
is it really you?
Yeah. So if you were to take every single atom of my body, including my brain, and just copy it, put it 5 feet to the right of me, then is that truly me? I mean, I guess that depends on if people believe in souls or how they interpret that, but it's always
that's true.
A very good question.
That is quite the brain bender. It's such a good movie. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Like, what's your opinion on that? Like, what would you think? Like, sure, it comes down to souls, but if you take away the concept of souls at all, does that break it entirely? Does that mean it's not the same person, even if it's the same memory, same everything? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I would say it is the same person completely. It's just you're just slightly displaced in space. Instead of sitting in a chair, you're standing up. That's the only difference in my mind is where you currently are.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. If you bring souls into the equation, let's say, you believe in a soul, what happens if you copy a person? Does the soul also get copied? If so, doesn't that break the idea of a soul?
Have you ever heard the concept?
Does that mean the original is the only soul? That's kind of scary.
Have you ever heard of a Horcrux?
Oh yeah, true.
Maybe something like that would happen, where your soul just gets split in half, and then you turn into some freak.
Oh man, I've never thought of cloning that way. That's weird. That's really weird. Yeah, that's odd.
Hey.
Someone should come up with I know we were talking about movies, but I don't think there's been a movie that talks about splitting souls, and in Harry Potter, Voldemort does feel the effects of it. It's a canonical reason why he gets more evil, but there needs to be a movie that really explores that. If somebody does that and clones themselves, it actually kind of ruins them. That'd be like a good horror movie,
Yeah,
I'd like that.
Yeah,
that'd be
awesome.
Cool.
Hey, good news about cloning while we're on the subject. Scientists finally did succeed in cloning for the first time in history a couple years ago. I can't remember what it was. It was something on the atomic scale.
Wasn't it a sheep or something?
No.
Oh, was it
It's
small?
something atomic. It was like the nucleus of a hydrogen atom or something. But they claimed that they successfully. Wow. Wait, was it cloning or? Actually, it might have been teleportation. I think they teleported it. Actually, now that I think about it.
Really? That's the first I've heard of that. They've actually done teleportation. Huh? Yeah. I've heard that they've cloned successfully something, which I don't know how that works. Like, doesn't that require making something out of nothing?
Well,
or do they use like a starting point?
Yeah, so scientists these days clone all the time, but in the sense that you're taking the DNA of one animal and then replicating it so it grows to be in the same animal. We can't duplicate. Like Jurassic Park or something. Yeah, we can't duplicate, I guess is the better way to say it. We can't take a group of atoms and then make it double itself. You know, it has to come from something.
Yeah, right.
But I know that if your dog dies, you can pay a whole lot of money to bring him back in some sense.
Yeah, I was actually just talking with my sister the other day. Our dog died earlier this year, and I was asking my sister, I was like, if it was possible, like, would you bring him, like, perfectly? Would you bring back a perfect clone of him? And she said no. And I said, I'm not sure. I don't think it would be him, you know, which I guess answers the question earlier, how I would feel about it, you know. From a practical standpoint, yeah, it's him, but just wouldn't feel the same. But at the same time, I would want to see him again, you know. So I might say yes to that kind of thing. But yeah.
That would be really sad, though, because you would know him, but he wouldn't know you.
That's true. You'd have to relearn the relationship. You're right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Unless there was some way to, like, give him all the memories, like that would be much different. Like, I'm sure even Audrey would probably be cool with that. You know, if you could give him all the memories of the previous dog. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she'd be okay with even that. I guess that would kind of destroy the principle in the first place. But the point is, you know, regardless of what we would say, I guarantee you many people would do it 100%. Like, that would be $1 million idea, $1 billion idea.
Which one? The dog one?
That out is just like cloning people's loved ones. Like, regardless if people think it's like actually them, like, it would make billions of dollars. Like, no question. That would be very popular.
I was saying that they already do it.
Oh, they do?
You're serious? They've been cloning dogs for a few years now. Like, you might have to take the cells from your dog while they're still alive, but you can absolutely clone them. Really? Like 99%.
That's the first I've heard of that. Are you serious, man?
Yeah.
You messing with me?
No, you could look it up.
It's a thing, huh? Really?
I mean, like I said, it costs like tens of thousands of dollars, but yeah, dog cloning's a thing. I don't think they do it with many other animals. I think they do it with, like, sheep or something, but yeah, they do it with dogs all the time. It says process is costly. It's around $50,000. Dog cloning involves taking a tissue sample from a dog, culturing its cells, transferring that genetic material into a donor egg, and implanting the resulting embryo into a surrogate mother for a full-term pregnancy and birth, resulting in a genetically identical twin of the original dog.
Okay, would that dog still act like my old dog, though? You know, would it have the same personality? I feel like it'll look the same. It's like a twin, right? It's no different than having a twin. Like, it could be a totally different dog from a personality standpoint. Or am I just misunderstanding it?
No, I mean, it definitely could. I think it would come back to, like, whatever we're learned is nature or nurture. Because if your dog's personality was purely because of his genes and the way that his brain developed, then yeah, it could definitely be the same. But, you know, think about how many different factors come into account when we're born and growing up and learning. There's so many different factors that the chances you get that exact same dog are probably pretty slim. But genetically, they can do it perfectly.
As that stands, like the way you're describing it, it doesn't sound close enough for me to consider it the same dog. Like, even though that sounds like incredibly close, and that's like a miracle, like from like scientifically, that's a miracle. It it's still not quite enough for me to consider it like, I wouldn't consider it my max, you know?
Right.
Like,
it'd be a
that's
lot
just
like
not.
it'd feel like a lot like their son to me. Like, very similar, but not the same dog that died.
That's a good way, good way of describing it.
Yeah. Very interesting questions. It's kind of crazy what we can do these days. Apparently they could do it with humans if they wanted to right now, but of course it's restricted.
It's restricted by like international law or what?
I would assume so. I just know that they can do it with dogs, and if they did the same process, they could easily do it with humans also. I'm actually surprised it hasn't been done yet, but it's, of course, banned by whatever companies are doing it.
Bro, I bet you someone's done it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just not public.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's very, very, very strange to think about. There's got to be like dystopian movies out there about that kind of stuff, you know, that I just can't think of.
There's the Oblivion with Tom Cruise. Have you seen that?
Oh, true. Yeah, good point. I love that movie. Yeah, him and his like girl are like cloned.
Yeah, they just go through the same process over and over.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, going back to immortality a little bit. Not that I don't mind the tangents. Tangents are good.
Tangents are good. A lot of movie references on this episode too.
True. So would commitments like marriage or even having children make much sense anymore?
I think they would. I think.
Do you think you would get married though? Like, let yourself fall in love only to watch, like, going back to Lord of the Rings.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, watching
are they
Aragorn
also
die.
Immortal? Because wouldn't me being immortal imply they could be immortal, or would be? Is like everybody on Earth immortal in this situation, or is it just me?
That is the question.
That is the question. I guess we could answer both ways.
Yeah.
Sounded like you were asking, like, if I was the only one immortal, like, would I bother getting married?
Yeah. Let's go that way first, and then we can dive into the other side.
Okay. Personally, I can see how this could be hard, but personally, it's not hard for me. I would. Which I guess means. Huh? I guess that means not really polygamy, but I mean, people do it anyway, right? You get married, somebody dies, and then you remarry. Like, it's not a crazy concept.
Right.
For me, that's not hard. I think I still would. And that would suck to know they die, but I wouldn't want to like deny myself the experience of getting married just because I know it's not forever. I mean, it's already like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're both going to die someday, just on Earth as it is. So yeah, that's not hard for me. What about you?
I would probably plan on not getting married, and then I'd probably like you're living forever. You're going to fall in love at some point, right? So I'd probably fall in love and get my heart broken when she dies, and then repeat the process over and over without having much of a say in it.
Yeah. Hey, that's the burden of immortality, is it not? But I guess we go the other way. If everybody's immortal, that's harder, because you say marriage is forever, right? Which is a romantic thing. But man, when you're committing to someone forever and ever and ever,
well, the person
and you know that things are going to be
the person you marry likely won't be the same person in 1,000 years, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going to go. Like, regardless of arguments and whether you think that people can make it work for that long or would even want to be with the same person for that long. I mean, you could go both ways. I'm sure some people would say, yeah, like easily. And some people would be like, no way. But you're right. Like, in 200 years, are you married to the same person? That's kind of crazy. Even as it is, human lifespan, let's say 70 to 80 years, there's a lot of people who get divorced, simply because of the fact that, one of them or both of them changed and they're just like not into each other anymore. And that's totally like, that's not an uncommon thing. Can you imagine if hundreds of years or thousands of years. Like, man, if you go through all these experiences and you try all these different things and you're growing and you're changing as a person, I feel like you're bound to have like differences, right? Surely.
Yeah. I also think about, though, sometimes when a couple is growing older, they actually become more and more similar, instead of
True.
more and more different. So maybe it would depend on the person you marry. Maybe it would depend on your guys' personalities. But I could also see
True.
you two getting to the point where you're like, not the same person, but you're close enough where there's no reason to ever leave each other. You know, you're like, hey, we like the same stuff at this point. We do the same things. We have the same morals and goals. Like, even if it is for tens of thousands of years, eventually, I mean, another thing to bring up is we get attached to people after knowing them for weeks, or if we get married to someone, we're with them for years. You get really attached to them and you don't want to leave them. If you're with someone for thousands of years, like, maybe you won't remember what life is like without that person. Literally. Not in a figurative sense, like, but in a literal sense. Like, what would I do without this person constantly being at my side?
You think you'd be like more dependent? Like, we'd become more dependent as a species? Like, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think in that scenario, I think a divorce would be less stigmatized. Because marriage, regardless of how you feel about it, like religiously or whatever, I just think marriage in general is kind of, it's implied that you're married for life. And yeah, people get divorced, that's normal. But like, you know, you're married until you die. And that's what you say, till death do us part. I think if everybody was immortal and marriage still existed, I think it wouldn't be like a shocker. Like, after 80 years, it's like, oh yeah, we finally got divorced. Like, we were married for 80 years. It's like, that is what it is, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not, it wouldn't be as much of an expectation to stay together forever. In fact, I think it'd be the other way around. I think people would like expect, oh yeah, you guys were married for 100 years. That's about normal, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that would make sense. It'd be like.
I guess that's a rather dim view of the world, but.
No, you're right. Like, after being with someone for hundreds or thousands of years, you're like, well, it's probably time to try something different, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Or take a break from each other. It sounds bad. It sounds like really dismal. That sounds like really depressing, like, for us to say that.
But we're looking at the long term. We're looking at the longer term than anyone has ever lived.
That's right. Right. Philosophy is about pushing the boundaries of what we know to be true in today's world. So that's what we're doing here on this podcast. And
questioning our own morals.
I think. Yeah, questioning our own reality. I think it would just be different if immortality was a thing. I don't think marriage would be as much of a, I don't want to say commitment, but you know, I can't find the word, but you get me.
Yeah. And then thinking about kids, I guess kids wouldn't matter quite as much. Like, it might be cool to meet your great-great-great-great-grandchild, but in terms of a family sense, I mean, even today, where we're only on Earth for 70, 80, 90 years, usually you're not all living in the same household, or a lot of the time not even in the same town, right? A lot of grandparents have their grandchildren in different states. So maybe that wouldn't play as big of a role if we were immortal. Maybe we would just be
I'm ready to agree with you. I'm ready to agree with you 100%. But I think there's a caveat there, because you know, I don't see my great grandparents. I mean, they just passed away, so they're gone now. But I didn't see them much. You know, we were close somewhat, and they'd call on my birthdays, and I'd come see them once a year. But other than that, you know, I'd never call. We weren't that close. I think that's normal. You know, when you're 3 generations apart. And I see my grandparents quite a bit. So it's just like, over time, more generations, the less you see them, and that's just the way it is. But how does that figure into like Eastern cultures, you know, like Asian cultures? you mentioned living under the same roof. That's much more normal over there, and you're much more closer to extended family. So that'd be different in different cultures. Would they go farther? Would you stay in touch with more family if you were immortal? Because you're right. In America, if culture didn't change, but we lived forever, I think you're totally right. We would have great grandkids. We'd probably just wouldn't see them much, and that's just the way it would be. But maybe in countries like Japan or whatever, or Korea, you'd probably stay. Your family would be huge.
Oh yeah.
It wouldn't be infinite, but it'd be a lot bigger. That's it's interesting to think about, especially when you think that some families in the East stay together like forever, like until you die. So at what point does that stop? Because you can't just have everyone living with everyone. It's just but then you also can't be like, oh, it's just 4 generations. Well, that doesn't really make sense either, because 4 generations to me is a lot different than 4 generations to my grandpa. His goes back farther. So yeah, that's weird.
It makes me think about the Mayflower, because I know tons of people, including Hannah, actually, who have told me that they're descendants from someone who's on the Mayflower.
Oh, really?
And
that's pretty cool.
The Mayflower only had 100 people on it. So let's imagine that someone from the Mayflower is still alive today. They're going to have thousands, tens of thousands of descendants. So as your family grows that large, you're not going to be able to stay in touch with all of them, surely. No. You're not going to be able to have an intimate relationship with all of them. Maybe your kids, your grandkids, maybe your great-grandkids. But at a point, your family might technically it's going to keep growing, but in terms of relationships, maybe it does stop after you get to great-grandkids. Yeah. Maybe you don't really keep track of things after that.
I don't know. And then you reminded me of 2 things. History would be a lot more visceral, because you have everybody telling their stories, and I think we'd be able to document history a lot easier. But also, generations, like if we agree that generally with age comes wisdom, doesn't that mean that each generation is kind of down the totem pole? I don't want to say dumber, but power-wise, aren't, like, if everyone lives forever, aren't the oldest people always the smarter? Are always smarter? You know what I mean? Like, I will never be as smart as my father. My son will never be as smart as me, because they've just lived longer, and that's how it always will be. There's no handing over the baton of wisdom or age like that. So
right. It goes back to the question.
How does that work?
It goes back to the question, I think, of how you live your life, though, because even if you do have someone, even today, who's 90 years old, but they've been living as a farmer for their entire life, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But then you compare it to maybe a doctor who's only 30. Well, yeah, there's a big age gap, but in terms of knowledge, that doctor has a lot more than that farmer. So
yes,
it also goes, if you're immortal and you're 1,000 years compared to someone who's immortal but only 200 years, it really depends on what you've been using your time with.
Yeah.
Right? If you've been reading books and studying and going to schools, then you're going to be learning a lot faster pace than those who aren't doing those things.
That's a really good point. Yeah, very good point. Do you think we would go to school longer if we were immortal? Like, do you think
I think so.
College would be more than 4 years? And
I think so. I think the breaks would be needed, because at a point, in school you're learning so much, and then maybe it's burnout, or you just get bored, or you want to try something new. But I do think that you'd be doing a lot more college, but you'd be taking breaks during college,
Yeah, true. I wonder if we would work more or less, like the job week.
I wonder if that has anything to do with... I don't want to be working 40 hours a week for the rest of my life, for the rest of forever.
Yeah, but you'd think that, but now if I put it on the flip side, like, hey, you only have 80 years to live on Earth, like just normal. I mean, do you really want to be working 40 hours a week with a shorter life? You know, when you put it that way, it's worse.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. But school-wise, I agree with you. I think we would go to school a lot longer. It would be less accelerated, you know. I think there'd be less stigma on old people going to school as well, right?
Oh,
I don't
definitely.
think there's anything wrong with, hey, I'm gonna be a doctor for 100 years, but you know, in my next 100 years, I'm gonna be a pilot. I think you'd see a lot more of that. People wanting to do multiple things. That'd be one of the most exciting things for me, is the time to learn like literally whatever you want. Like for me, it kind of sucks. We only live so long. You can only get a couple professions at most, and it's kind of too bad. You know, there's so much out there to experience and learn. Not to mention like travel. I want to see different countries, and you know, I might not have the money to do that. If I do have the money to do that, it'll only be like for 30 years of my life or less. And if we were immortal, man, we'd be able to see so much, learn so much, experience so much, become so much. For me, that would be the most exciting part about it.
But it might get boring after a while.
That's true. Like, what would our methods be of staying not entertained, but avoiding boredom? Like, if you saw the whole world and you saw every culture, what is there left? You know,
Right.
what is there left to learn? What is there left to see? I guess at that point, you just kind of try to improve the world and try to change it. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be your only hope,
Yeah.
is the constant change of the world. Because if things stayed the same and you couldn't continue learning, then you would probably just freaking hate your life. But if you're able to see the world constantly change, so that way you're learning new stuff, then I guess it'd be reasonable. You'd be able to survive something like that.
Here's a book idea for you. 2 men are gifted with immortality. They both go learn everything there is to know, experience everything there is to experience, see everything, you know. There's nothing more for them to see, learn, do, say, nothing. One of them is like, okay, now I've got to change the world for the better. The other one's like, I've seen it all, I'm going to destroy it. What else?
Nuke it.
What else is there?
There is no meaning of life. Nuke everyone.
Right. You make the book and you call it The Duality of the Immortal Man.
Ooh, Duality of Immortal Man. I like that.
Ooh, not bad. That's copyrighted for all you listeners out there. You will get sued.
That's right.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Well, shifting gears just a little bit. So we've discussed a lot about what immortality would look like to us as individuals. And I don't want to cut too much into other podcast topics. But how do you think this would change if we talk about the entirety of humanity being immortal? Like, what do you think our next goals would change? Do you think our priorities would change? Would nations come together and become more unified?
Oh, true. Like from a world standpoint, like politically?
Yeah, just civilization as a whole. How would we look at life differently if none of us were gonna die? If we would all continue. Do you think we'd have more or less wars? That's my first question. Well, I really hope that there would be less, because wars are usually about competition for resources, and if you're immortal, there's no need for resources, right? Unless you're.
So again, that's true. That's true. There's no need, right? Unless, well, I guess that's not true. We still need, well, yeah, because if you don't need to eat and you're immortal. Well, is this immortal like you can die, or immortal like you can't die ever?
Let's say
you can't be killed.
Let's say humans get to the point where we have technology so advanced that we cannot be killed.
Okay. In that instance, I feel like there's no more war, right? And even if it was the other way, where we could still be killed, I feel like life would be more precious in a way, even though it's longer. It'd be like, man, there's so much potential. Why would I kill someone? Mm-hmm. Like death would be a bigger deal. Again, that's weird to think about, because shouldn't death be a bigger deal if our lives are shorter? Yeah, but that's weird. But if we could never die, yeah, I would want to say there'd be more peace, between nations, between cultures, we'd be more amicable, even between like religions and different denominations and different cultures and beliefs. You'd think so, right? Because again, it goes down to the wisdom thing. And if we're not competing for resources, and we know we can't die anyway, I guess then it becomes you're competing for happiness. And what does that mean? And what do people deem as happiness? So there's always that theological war, right? Which we still deal with. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think people would be less desperate for certain things. Like right now, people have political disagreements because of money. I don't make this much money when this person's in power. I'm not happy when this person's in power because of my job, and my job will, this. To an extent, I think that goes away, right? Like, am I wrong?
Yeah, let's see. Because if you're immortal, then you don't need food or water, but you still want to live comfortably, right? So I'm assuming we would still need to work. We would still need to earn money. We would still need to ensure that we're living a decent life. But
so there would still be economy.
Yeah, so I think the economy would continue to exist. It just people wouldn't be as desperate as they are today, because worst case scenario, you're homeless, not you're dead.
True. Yeah, that's a good point, which is arguably worse.
Yeah, depending on where, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there'd still be problems, and I could be totally wrong. I just don't think they'd be as pronounced. I think we'd have an easier time getting along.
Yeah, my hope, and one of our future episodes will be about how small Earth is compared to the rest of the universe. So I'm going to cut into that a little bit. But my hope is we would become something like Star Trek, where we're like, hey, the last frontier is space. We need to go out there. We need to colonize all the planets, explore the universe. So hopefully we would be more unified and, thinking about like Maslow's hierarchy of what matters. Like, you can cut off the bottom layer. We don't need to worry about food or air or whatever. So now we can start focusing on more creative things like exploration, learning, curiosity. So that would be my hope. I don't know if it would happen, because humans are selfish and we love war. we figured that out even in the 20th century or 21st century, where technology is pretty advanced and people are pretty civilized. We're still having wars, unfortunately. But I'm really hoping that everyone would come together and be like, hey, we're all unified humanity. We're going to be sticking around. Let's go explore what's out there.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, that's a really good point. I agree. I think that's how it would go. But not to mention, if we're immortal, I've never thought about this, but that doesn't mean that we can't be tortured. It's very dark. But Does that mean we can't feel pain? Probably not. And some people are going to exploit that. That's just human nature. So maybe there are still wars. It's just not, people don't die. They just suffer, right?
Right.
Which is very morbid to think about. I just thought about that, and it doesn't seem like such an appealing thing anymore, does it?
Well, there's so many branches off of the word immortality, because, like, I'm sure you've read I Have No Mouth, but I Must Scream, right?
No.
No? You've never read that? It's a short story.
I've never
it's
heard
like,
of that, no.
Oh, well, you're going to have to read that today, because it's a classic.
I Have No Mouth.
I Have No Mouth, but I Must Scream. Super popular short novel that you'll have to read. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically it comes down to that, where someone is immortal and they're being constantly tortured by an AI and they're not being allowed to die.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's like some people's worst nightmare, and like I said, thankfully that's not a possibility for us. But if you open the doors to immortality, then not only are you opening the doors to much greater things, but also much more devastating things like that.
Yeah. I can't believe we did not even get to that until just now, this deep into the episode. But maybe that would really suck. And maybe wars would be worse. You know, as morbid as that sounds. Like, would we be inclined to be more peaceful because we can't die? Or would that just mean that there's worse ways to to extort, you know, our fellow human? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
I don't like thinking about that.
I'm assuming if we achieve true immortality, the good news is, I'm assuming if we achieve true immortality, before then we would have figured out how to stop pain, right? So the good news is,
yeah,
I doubt we would be truly immortal while still feeling pain. We've probably, you know, maybe we would transfer ourselves into a robotics of some sort, but
yeah,
they're like, because if you're immortal, there's no reason for pain. The reason we have pain in the first place is to ensure that we avoid death, right? You have a stomach ache.
Oh, true.
Because maybe you have cancer or because you ate something poisonous. So
True.
If you take away...
it's like your body's warning.
Yeah, if you take away mortality, then there's really no reason for pain. So I'm assuming humans would take that out.
Yeah, or even like, you know, if you're an evolution believer, you know, eventually like humans would evolve past pain, I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're, yeah, I don't really know how that would work from a scientific angle, but I mean, I guess we've already kind of solved pain, sort of, like anesthetics, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're
there. Yeah, so I don't know what happens. You just keep taking anesthetics when you go to war. But I guess you could still torture someone. You know, you just make sure they don't get the anesthetic. Or maybe you just give it to the child. It's like a vaccine when you're born. You know, here you go. You don't feel pain. That's kind of a dope idea.
Give it to them right away. It like neutralizes all their pain cells, and boom, you're good to go.
Yeah, and you're good to go. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are at the 57-minute mark, so perhaps we have time for one more point to discuss.
Okay.
So, Buck, personally, and this is going to encompass all that we've discussed, but if death disappeared tomorrow, would you choose to live forever?
Ooh,
if you had the choice. If you had the choice.
If I had the choice. Man, with all the factors we just talked about, you can ask me that.
Yes, sir.
So are you implying that everyone gets the choice, or just me? Is it just a choice everyone has?
I should be specific, because that's gonna matter in your answer for sure. Let's say that you rub a genie lamp, a genie comes out, and he says, "I can make only you immortal. You will no longer feel pain, and you will have no way of ever dying. Like you don't get a kill switch or anything. You will never disappear from this universe."
Dang. Again, does that mean I can make everyone else immortal?
No. He's only giving you this choice.
Just me.
He's only asking you this question.
Now I'm thinking about the heat death of the universe. What happens when the Earth
It is something you got to take into account.
It is something. I guess I would eventually just build myself a rocket and get out of here. But, you know, man, if it was just me and I could not stop it ever, that is a good question. That is a good question. You go first while I think about it.
Okay, I could go first because I have a clear answer.
I'm inclined to say no. That's my first impression. I'll tell you that. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my answer would be a big fat no. And it's for that reason you just explained. It's because what if you are immortal, truly immortal, and somehow humanity gets wiped out and you're alone? Then that is the worst thing I can ever imagine a human being go through is because, you know, even if I don't want to end on a sour note, but even if someone is being tortured, the only relief that person has is knowing that it's going to end at some point.
Yeah.
Because they're mortal. But if you're immortal and you're out there in space, even if you don't feel pain, I cannot even begin to imagine what it would be like to just be stuck on a big giant rock by yourself, not for 100 years, not for 1,000 years, forever.
Just forever.
I don't want to make that a possibility. I don't want to even have a 0.1% chance of that being possible.
Have you seen Interstellar?
I have. Great movie.
You know, when they get to Dr. Mann's planet, and I don't remember the exact. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but the gist is, it's a candidate for humanity. Like, they got to leave Earth, they got to go somewhere. They find Dr. Mann, and he's been there for, I can't remember how many years, but he's like alone, and he's like depressed, and he makes the decision that he pretty much kills humanity's chances of ever, you know, living on that planet, just so he can get back to Earth and like see people. Like, he's that lonely. And I think that's pretty I think that's very I think it's realistic. You know, that's who we are as human beings. Like, loneliness is like one of the worst things, and we'll do anything, you know, even terrible things to avoid not being lonely. So I guess my next question to you, let's say they found other life out there, like tomorrow, like along with the genie, they also found that other life does exist out there. And, you know, maybe it's just one planet, but that would imply that there's other people, you know, that question has been solved. Does that change your answer? You know, because there's always someone out there you could go find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably still say no, just because, again, you don't want that chance. But on the other hand, it brings up the question, what if humanity does survive? Then in 10 million years, are we going to be so advanced and powerful that we can actually change the outcome of the universe? And the universe won't collapse in on itself, or whatever's going to happen. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to be stuck alone for eternity. It's kind of a gamble. It's a gamble on where the universe is going to end, or how, if we get to control how it ends. If we become gods.
That's true. You know, my answer is no. I'm going to say no, but there would be two things that would change my answer. Number one is that. Not a guarantee, but I would like to, you know, if there's a possibility that humanity could evade, you know, annihilation, that would change my answer. And number two is if I could get some sort of guarantee that there was an afterlife and what it was like, you know. Because if I knew for sure there was an afterlife, there was a heaven, and I could be with the ones I love again after this, no question, I'd rather die. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if on the flip side, the genie I was like, hey, you know, my first wish, tell me if there's an afterlife. Like, and he's like, no, it's just darkness forever. I'd be more inclined to want to be immortal. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Like, some people like legitimately, like, they don't mind the idea. It's like, that's fine, you know, I'll die someday, and, you know, even if it's nothing, that's just what happens, and I'm okay with that. I haven't reached that point myself. Like, I do want to live a long time, and I like the potential of, like, hey, you can learn this much, and
are you thinking about,
I wish I could be with people I loved longer.
Are you thinking about Mark Twain in particular when you say that?
Sorry?
I was just wondering, are you thinking about Mark Twain in particular, like, when you're saying that?
No. Tell me.
Oh, he just has a really famous quote about death. Let me...
Yeah, bring it up. Maybe I know it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Okay, it's, I do not fear death. I've been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and have not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it.
Yes, right. And so in that, yeah, I mean, it's a good quote. It's a great quote, and it gives people comfort and everything. But even myself, like where I'm at in life right now, like I would like to live longer than, the average human lifespan. It just is what it is. But if someone told me, hey, don't worry, there's a heaven and you can be with your loved ones again, and it's a surety, then I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that. No question. But I can't lie, immortality sounds great as long as I don't have to spend it alone. So those are the two guarantees that I would, I would somehow have to secure. But it's a long-winded answer. It's a long-winded way of saying no.
It's a complicated question.
It is a very complicated question. I mean, we had a whole episode, and I'm sure we could talk for hours more. But yeah, I think we brought up I think we hit all the points for you and I, at least. I'm sure other people would have different opinions or different. They would need different guarantees,
Hey, maybe we'll have a guest on a future episode to give us even more perspective.
True. What we should do is we should write down our every time we have a question at the end of the episode. So that way, when we have guests, we can ask them all the tough questions all at once.
Go down the list of the toughest questions we made. Yeah. Here are the top 10.
Well, yeah, welcome to the part of the episode where we ask you all the toughest questions that we pose to ourselves, and we're gonna speed run you through all of them right now.
Yeah.
Just one answer, just yes or no. You don't have to elaborate any more than that.
That'd be fine. All right, Awesome. Well, we want to thank our wonderful viewers, our very loyal. I was gonna say loyal. Our very loyal viewers who support us and give us all these wonderful donations of the Social Eclipse Podcast. We just want to thank you guys so much for your support and for listening in. I guess I already asked the big question I had in the finale, so I don't really have much more to say to them.
Do we have a sponsor this week?
We do have Skittles sponsor this episode. Make sure you go check out their website, skittles.com. Use code BUCK for how much do you get off for that, Buck?
I think I get 10% off, but if you use code TOAST, you get 20. I don't know what that's all about.
Okay, you could try it out. It might be expired, but go ahead and try it out. Yeah, we thank you guys for listening in. We hope to see you guys in our next episode when we do another philosophy subject. If you guys have any recommendations, throw it in the comments below. We will go ahead and take a look.
That's right.